the potato vibes of characters because basically like the mole, it's the mole itself and like the way that you like your art style when you draw the people, you don't try to draw it in like for me like my default way is like cute kind of thing where the eyes are big and everything, but yours is
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
specifically like your art style.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
or the kid that
Right,
that I
right,
was like
right,
it looks
right.
like a potato. The kid looks like a potato.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Definitely very I feel like I've improved a lot in drawing over the course of, I mean, 5 years is a long time. But I've like because this game has so much art, I feel like just like through just like sheer like iteration, I've gotten better.
You did
Uh,
kind of like develop your own specific like intentional style even while like silly and kind of rough, but like here's my attempt at copying the style. Not copying, like,
yeah, 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 very good.
this one's in the Discord server fan art channel.
I know, I'm a
Um
big fan of that. Big
what
fan
did
of
what did
that.
she do? What did she do? Look at her. She's so she was like, I don't know what's happening.
Um, she I don't know, cut off some logs, did
Cut off some logs. That is a
some
weird way to
trees,
word it.
cut some trees without permission.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No permits. No permits. War crimes even. Yeah.
How much art outsourcing was there? So there are so yeah, there is no art outsourcing. I'll show you the where that art has gone to. So if in the Mole Man fans, uh, that was all just for this page, where I just kind of compiled fan art just for the Detective Mole Man. This is kind of like a more of like a it's kind of like a fun little reference thing. None for like the base game. I will say that the only two assets that I did not draw are these two icons right here, web browser and the music player. Um, these are from like the Windows 95 icon set that I just copied and pasted. They haven't gotten after me yet. I hope they don't. But I did do like the animation of like because when you hover over it, it kind of like switches icons. I did do
Yeah,
that
I
process.
do like that. Like the arrest one where it looks at you. It's a side eye.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
side eye,
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah,
suspicious
yeah.
side eye kind of.
Yeah, it looks at you. But yeah, that's the uh, those are the only. I believe those are the only art assets not drawn by me. Uh, yeah.
Good question. Uh what else do I have for you? I guess speaking of the art and the characters and such, there are a lot of moles. There are also humans, but like the moles, there's like different moles.
There are
Do you
different
want
molds, yes.
to explain kind of who the moles are, or like the difference between the moles? Because we know there's the assistant intern for sure.
Yeah. So there are kind of just like two kind of types of moles. Well, the assistant is like a very different like just in terms of like how they look. Like you
Actually,
notice that the assistant
I
has
can show my thing. I'll show the thingy that I made before.
um but yeah, this is the mole prototype, and you can see that the eyes are yellow. And then the assistant has like these very kind of like more cutesy, kind of like more expressive eyes, while the mole man kind of look just kind of dead inside.
Here. We're on my screen share now. So we've got our detective mole man, our assistant intern, unnamed by the way, waiting for suggestions, accepting suggestions, right?
There we go.
So we've got assistant intern from the taskbar. Clippy vibes, clippy inspired. And we've got Detective Mole Man. Oh, look who's that on the side. Yeah, so for people who
Oh yeah,
don't
yeah,
know,
yeah.
haven't played the game, Detective Mole Man is a
Is
character in the
it is a
film.
character within the game. That is like a popular film franchise. So the Mole Men in general are like the mascots of the LZPD, which is the the police division that you're working for. They're like the mascots of that. Um, and yeah, so they kind of like also represent the city in a way because it is kind of like a this police state. So they're kind of also like kind of serve a dual purpose of like representing the
Mm-hmm.
city, representing the department. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess like the questions I'm gonna ask is kind of like is we have to be careful like what is gonna spoil the lore or what isn't. But like I guess are all the oh I was gonna say are all the police departments or like anything like that controlled by the moles and the regular citizens, all the suspects are human so far in the
yeah,
cases
yeah,
that
yeah.
I've seen.
So the moles aren't actually like real. There aren't real moles. They're all like it's all like a mascot. It's like a representation of it,
Okay.
and you just kind of yeah, they're kind of like just like the symbol of the police force.
I
Uh,
see, I see, I see. Oh yes, I get it now.
yeah, so like the moles aren't actually in the within like the context of the
Like
game
they're not
itself
in the
of the
actual
city.
they're not in that world either, physically.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So the
Hmm.
idea behind Jay's Walkin that because in Jay's Walkin
Part
the
of the
first
uniform,
game
exactly.
um they they follow you around, the moles themselves follow you around. But this was I later like re-envisioned this to the whole game to being like in Jay's kind of like messed up uh like imagination, and these were like actually like real policemen that he imagined as moles, which were like the mascots. um
We also have these missing posters for a mole man. This is the Detective Mole Man, but their name is just Mole Man. Last
that
seen
is
teaching a
Detective Moment, yeah,
sequel.
yeah, yeah.
Last seen teaching a sequel. So do all detectives use no, not all detectives use the database sequel stuff. It's just our is it just
So
our department
so
that
the
specializes? But we're minor crimes
uh
only.
yeah, the minor there are like database detectives like around across police divisions. The idea with this universe also is that like the idea is like everyone uses sequel, like pretty much
It's
like
like a
the
life
like
skill.
yeah, exactly. So it's like when you like for example in like if you once you unlock like the internet, you see that like a lot of these like common websites, when you click on like a download link,
So
it
true.
just it leads to like a this table that you just like interact with.
Yeah, it's
And
like a
that's just
normal
like
kind of
kind of
part of society
exactly,
culture
exactly.
to like
Right, right,
share
right.
the tables
Like
and such.
these tables are just like a
And currying is like the
part of
normal
life.
thing to do.
Right, right, right. Exactly, exactly.
It's like Gen Z using the internet or Gen M? Gen M moles? I don't know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. So as a database detective, your kind of like role is to kind of like sleuth through the internet and just like use that data that is commonly available to everyone to like kind
Hmm.
of
Public like
find the perpetrator.
not ethical hacking, but like publicly available data kind of investigating.
Exactly, exactly. Kind of like this social kind of not really. Yeah, yeah. In some cases, you're doing like this social detective work. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like the kind of the context of why there's so much like queryable data everywhere. And
Hmm.
the idea is just that SQL is just like a normal part of life.
Oh, we have a question in chat. Were there any specific challenges when making the game that stuck out for you?
There were a lot. I mean, yeah, you can get more specific. But like drawing takes a long time. Yeah, there are like challenges in numerous ways. I think the the hardest thing was just like to keep focused.
I think especially because you're
And
doing
just
this
kind of
on your own and you're the decision maker and the person doing the work.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
it like as someone who's independently doing all of this and making the decisions is you don't know when to stop. Like
Right, right, right.
you don't know when one task is done because you have to decide it. Like it's kind of like art and developing the game and everything, anything creative, right? Where it's like it's not really done, but if I don't finish this one part, I can't continue with the next things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm doing this part time. So it's like, you know, uh, he's got to take a lot of your time. You have to like, sometimes it's like, like middle, like when I was like finishing the, like there was a time when like, some of the cases were done, but like not the book and not the parser because there's like a whole sequel kind of parsing. Um, that needs to be done. And I was just like thinking that like, oh, there's still like a year ahead,
Yeah,
at
I'm
least
sure
a year
like
ahead.
those I feel like those would have taken the longest times in terms of like technical, like just doing the work and less slightly less creative
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
where you
yeah.
really
So
have to
like,
lock in.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And also like I think actually like the programming itself was like since I'm a software engineer, that's my profession. I find that like relatively easy. So a lot of that is just kind of like the parser is probably like the most difficult thing I had to write.
It
But
is the
even still, it's
core mechanic though of the game, most important.
um oh the yeah, oh that one's specifically just for the error messaging. So like I
Oh, right,
know
okay.
where the sequel like goes wrong. Like everything else was pretty straightforward, and even that is just like more a pain just because just like how much syntax it needs to support, and also still doesn't support a lot.
Do we
Um,
want to maybe like go through some of that parsing stuff, especially for people who don't
oh
know, like
yeah,
aren't like in the technical world, like you can define parsing like in general and also in the context of what we're talking about for completely non-tech people.
yeah, for sure. So where's the parser? I'll show the parser. So a parser is it's been so long. I don't know. Do I remember I don't know if it's like the exact definition of a parser, but it's like a thing that like kind of goes through kind of like a program and parses it. I'm using
Wow.
the name of
So
it in
good
the
at
definition.
defining things. The
Thank you.
parser parses things.
Parser parses things. So like it's been so long since my compilers class. But it's like actually, I don't even know if like parser is like. I guess it is like the correct use
I
because
guess you can just kind of
it goes through
go
the
through
query.
what each like kind of explain show how something like for example something gets sent in and then you can go like kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So whenever
explain
you type
through.
a query and you click submit, this
Zoom in a little, zoom in a little.
yeah, you see that? Whenever you submit a query in the game, it goes through this uh, script, just to this parser, and then sees if what you wrote is like legal, is a legal SQL query. So it parses your query and
Legal like
then
valid, not like
like
in
a
terms of
valid
minor
query. Yeah, yeah,
crimes.
yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. And this is not so the SQL backend, like what actually runs your query is SQLite. That's like the engine that like gives you that responses that stores the data. This is just something, but SQLite doesn't give you like very good error messages. Like sometimes if you write something, it just says like syntax error, and you just have like, okay, where did I go wrong? So the idea behind this parser was that it would give you like these very specific error messages, so you know exactly like where your query went wrong. So whenever you like write a query, it has to start with like a select statement. So this is like what it does, and then and it kind of like goes through a query, and then make sure it's that like each like these these minute like syntax details are correct. And there's just like so many and this is by the way one of like the reasons why is going to be kind of a pain because there's like a lot of these like strings that I have to like extract out. Uh,